All right, guys, it has been a while since I was able to do one of these little rank and tier things that I love so much. And I'm so glad to be back because I got a little bit inspired watching Creed 3 last night. And I'm like, you know what? I got to rank the Rocky films. So I'm sure a lot of people, probably my age or a little older, grew up with Rocky films. I was born in '89. So there were quite a few Rocky films by the time I was born. But the Rocky films to me always just stood out as very inspirational, a lot of fun to watch, and extremely entertaining, but there's some that are better than others. So yeah, you can see I have The Champ, which is the best of the best movies, a Knockout, which is damn good, almost the best, but it's not The Champ. He just had a nice knockout, a few solid punches, which means it's an enjoyable movie. I liked it though. It could have been better in some places. Went a few rounds means I think it had some moments, but it really was a letdown. And then Fell Down Crying is just pitiful. You're a bitch and you're gone. So we're going to start with the big one, Rocky. Now, Rocky to me is what I think as a classic movie. The big thing about Rocky is that you could watch it years and years later. You could watch it the first time when you're a kid and again as an adult and get different feelings and different things from it. And also the fact that I think it is generational, right? Is that the word? Where you could just watch it for any generation, no matter the age. It's a story about an underdog, and everybody loves an underdog story because when you have a character that's down on his luck, that's not doing well, and he comes and does that, or she comes and does that, that is inspirational. And we all in life go through trials and tribulations. It's tough to make it in this fucking world. And when you have something like Rocky that says, never give up your dreams, both in movie form and the real life behind the scenes, what happened with Sylvester Stallone, it's kind of amazing. And this is really a love story in a boxing movie, and it works really well. I mean, of course, it has cheesy moments. It's a product of its time in some ways, but again, like I said, it feels timeless. I showed my wife this movie for the first time, and it's full. I feel like everybody's watched this movie on TV, parts here and there, but I showed her the full movie maybe about 10 years ago when we first were starting to get together, and she loved it. And I think anybody really can love this movie. So yeah, Rocky to me is The Champ. It's one of the most rewatchable movies in my entire life. I've seen this movie maybe 30 times, and I just love it. So it's going to go in The Champ because I think it deserves to be in that. So Rocky 2 is a really weird movie. So I feel like there's two camps. There's one that's like it's almost as good as the original. It's really well done. And then there's people like this was a needless sequel. And I'm kind of in between. Like I enjoy this movie. I do think that the ending, the actual fight is actually done a little bit better in terms of the feel of it. It feels like kind of, I don't want to say vicious, but it feels like more pound to pound brutalness. And now if you're watching the Rocky films, none of these feel like actual boxing matches. I mean, they do in a way, but they're obviously Hollywood, and it's more cinematic, I guess you could say. But I would say Rocky 2 had a cool storyline where Rocky was like, "Nah, I proved who I was," but then he's like, "You know what? I kind of want to be the champ, though." So it's kind of a weird mixture of that. I do feel like it is a little too much like the original, where it doesn't try anything new in terms of making it interesting and fun in that way. But I wouldn't say it's bad. I'm actually going to put it in a few solid punches. I think it has quite a few nice moments, and I think it's always enjoyable to watch. It's not like a movie where I'm like, I can't watch this ever again. But I will say, as far as like one of the most enjoyable sequels, I don't think it's even in my top three enjoyable sequels. I like three movies more than this. Rocky 3. I don't really like this movie that much. I think it's way too goofy. Some people are like, no, it's a lot of fun and everything. To me, this is probably the least rewatchable Rocky film in terms of enjoyment for me. I don't think it's the worst Rocky film in terms of the structure or story, but I do think it's probably the weakest in terms of wanting to ever really watch this again. I think it is the most product of its time movie of this entire list. I think that you really have to understand that this was the 80s and it was something special. But yeah, when I'm looking at this list, I can't put Rocky 3 in a few solid punches because I actually don't think there's that many moments that are that fun. The Hulk Hogan fight is pretty fun, even if it's really stupid and his name is something else. But yeah, I'm going to have to put Rocky 3 in Went a Few Rounds. I don't think it fell on its face crying. And it's probably high Went a Few Rounds because it is entertaining enough. But I think it's one of the weaker sequels of the series. So Rocky 4 is probably the one I watched the most as a kid. I feel like this one was one of the more entertaining ones. It definitely had like a villain, and I think that's the big thing as a kid, and then maybe a teenager. I really like that they had this big imposing villain, and Rocky had to power up and get stronger to beat him. So for some reason, I just really enjoyed this one, and I think that it has one of the better deaths in the movie. I know I didn't really talk about Mickey's death in 3, and that's because I think it's kind of forgettable. Whereas Rocky 4, sorry, spoilers, is like 30-year-old movie at this point. Apollo dies, which is kind of a great moment for not only Rocky, but just the general feel of the movie. It sets the tone that we have serious stakes going on in this movie. Now, that aside, this is basically montage the Rocky movie, but it's still really entertainment. It has some really great music moments in this, very 80s. So I like 80s music. So it was very enjoyable in that sense. And I think that it has some really cool fights. I think the last fight feels like an epic confrontation between two massive fighters. I do think that the overall political nature of this with Russia versus America and all that is goofy, but you got to enjoy it. You know, we ended the Cold War, so that's awesome. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed Rocky 4 for what it was and what it brings to the table for the future movies in the Creed series. So, it's kind of, I don't know if I'd put it in a knockout, but if I am going to put it because of just how much enjoyment I had as a kid, but I'm also going to put it in low knockout. That would be low knockout. All right, Rocky 5. So this is the one that people just seem to hate. And I'll be honest, I didn't rewatch this movie in a long time, and I still haven't, but I don't remember hating it. The problem I had with Rocky 5 is that it didn't seem to have an ending that was satisfying. Like the street fight, it's cool that it's something different. I like that. I always like when movies take a chance, but the street fight wasn't that entertaining. That's the problem. So you have to be entertaining if you're going to try something different. I don't mind different. I don't mind different structure, but when you have an ending like this, I thought it was piss poor. I do like the idea of the movie. I think Rocky kind of training the next up and coming generation is a cool idea, but it didn't work well here. It didn't have the character Tommy Gunn as someone who you like. And I know he's not supposed to be someone you like by the end, but at least make me like him until then. And it never did. So I think Rocky 5 is a messy movie. I don't think it's the worst movie ever. I wouldn't even put it in Fell Down Crying, but I'll probably put it with Rocky 3. I actually think I would actually probably watch Rocky 5 again more than 3 just because I want to see what I liked and disliked. But I think Rocky 3 is probably a more entertaining movie in the end, or probably at least better made. So this is going to go and win a few rounds right behind Rocky 3. So Rocky Balboa is my first Rocky movie I saw in theaters. Obviously, most of these were made before I was able to go to the movies, whereas Rocky Balboa was made in 2006, I believe. And this movie was, man, it hit me hard. So I was 17 at the time, I believe, when this came out. I've watched all the Rocky movies my whole childhood. I watched them in my teenage years. So when they announced that Rocky's coming back, some people are like, "Oh, really, man? Come on, Sylvester." And I'm like, "Nah, come on. I'm ready for another Rocky, especially after 5. Come on, you know." And so they brought this back. Rocky was back fighting. He was the champ. He was ready to go. I was like, "Yeah, that's Rocky." We can't understand what he's saying half the time. I'm all aboard. And there's so many great moments in this movie. I will say that this movie, you have to watch the first 5 Rocky movies to really get the feel of this movie, or at least Rocky 1 and 2. But I think all 5 really come together in this movie. It makes it the end song, the swan song for Rocky Balboa. And I also just love the fight in this movie. I think it's kind of a brutal fight. It looks great. And it also has the heart of Rocky again. Like, I felt like that was missing since maybe Rocky 2, like that gritty feel. Now, this is definitely a little bit more high end in terms of Rocky 1 2. The budget's obviously much bigger. But I felt like Rocky returned to form in this movie. There's really only one boxing match in this movie, which is kind of phenomenal that it's just a lot of character study to that moment. And it worked really well. I love the side cast in this movie. And this felt like a swan song for Rocky as a boxer. And I really just love that he was able to go out like this. So, saying that, Rocky Balboa is a knockout for me. And I would actually say it's my second favorite of the main Rocky series. I put it above 4. So Creed was coming out at a time where I already liked Rocky Balboa. I loved how it finished. I was like, do we need another one? I thought that was a great way to end it. But then Michael B. Jordan was casted, and Rocky was returning, and then they got the director who did Fruitvale Station, which I really liked. I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll give this a chance. Then the trailer came out. I was like, okay, it's looking good, but it still can be, a little cash grab. And then I saw it. I saw it. Let me tell you, there has been a very few moments in the theater where, besides Marvel movies, that I feel like the theater gets interactive. And this wasn't like over the top, but there's a moment in this movie, again, a little bit spoiler, at the end, boxing fight, where Creed has a moment with Rocky, and Rocky's just like, you don't have to do anymore. You've done enough. And he's just like, I have to prove it to them. And he's like, prove what? And he's like, that I'm not a mistake.
Prove what? I'm not a mistake.
And I'm just like, you're gonna make me fucking cry. This movie just had the feelings that I love. This is the start for the character Adonis Creed in his way of becoming the champ. And you see his growth, just like Rocky in the first movie. This has a very similar feel, a little bit better budgeted, obviously, but it has a similar feel. And you get to see Rocky really fight with Adonis. This is a aged old man who's already been through all this, who's like, I'm going to be with you to see you get to the same heights as me. And between the heart of this movie, between the characters of this movie, between the emotional beats of this movie, and the fight scenes, this is my favorite fight scenes in all of the entire series, because I feel like it just looks great, it feels great, it feels powerful when they're punching each other. There's a fight scene in this movie. I love the last fight scene, but I think it's the second fight scene as a one shot, basically. I'm sure they cut, but it looks like a one shot, and it is phenomenal. It has the heart, it has the excellent look to it, and it has the rush of watching a boxing match like right up in your face. So yeah, Creed is pretty much one of my favorite movies in the last 20 years. I've watched this already like 8 or 9 times, and it is wonderful. So I'm actually, and I know this might be sacrilegious to some, I actually like Creed a little bit more than the original Rocky. Watching them back to back, I've watched them both back to back a bunch of times, and I think they're both phenomenal. I'm talking about 9.5, 10 out of 10 for me. But as far as the feel of it, I think Creed just makes me feel so emotional. So yeah, I just love these two movies. They're both the champs. They're both classic. So Creed 2, I was really excited for. I was sad that we lost the director because he was doing Black Panther, but I was excited just because they're bringing back Adonis. This is his second kind of movie, so we could really grow into the character of Adonis after he becomes a champ. And you're bringing back Drago and his son and all these characters, and it's like, this sounds great. And it was good, but that's it. I think that's the problem with this movie. I think it's a good movie. I think there's emotional moments too, like the hospital scene, but I don't really feel connected to the characters like I did in the first one. I feel like we were going through the motions, and I feel like the story plots and the characters weren't as strong as the first one. The fight scenes were good, but I felt like they were darker and moodier, and kind of took away from the exciting look of the first movie for me in terms of the fight scenes. And I will say that I don't felt like the punches in this movie were as strong. Saying that, it's still a very enjoyable movie. There's moments I loved, especially between Rocky and Creed, and also Creed and his wife, and the birth of their child. Like, all those moments did work for me. I just felt like they didn't work on the same level. Saying that, I think it's kind of where Rocky 2 is, where I think it's a good movie. I think it has great moments, but it doesn't blow me away. I will say I probably liked it a little bit more than Rocky 2, mostly for the last fight scene. That last fight scene, or last boxing scene, box fight, was really strong. So Creed 2 is in a few solid punches, but I'm going to put it in front of Rocky 2. All right, so Creed 3 is the newest movie. I don't know when I'm putting this out live, but I just saw Creed 3 last night. Today is actually Friday, the release date of Creed 3. And I have to say, I was a little apprehensive after Creed 2. I was like, is it going to be a good movie, or is it going to be a great or a phenomenal movie? We could go any way. Or at least let's not let it be a bad movie. And I don't think any Rocky movies are really bad. I would say Rocky 3 and Rocky 5 to me are weaker, and not movies I really care to rewatch all that much. But I just wanted a little bit better than good. I thought Creed 2 was good, but I wanted great, or if I could get the champ level, I'd be ecstatic. And I'm happy to report that I did enjoy this movie quite a bit. So I'm an anime fan. as you can see. Michael B. Jordan actually directed this movie. He's an anime fan, and you could definitely tell when you're watching this movie they had feels of the anime in there, especially like kind of touching on the shonen tropes. And there's some fight scenes in here that feel like an anime boxing match, which is really awesome. They do kind of experiment with a fight in here at the end that I thought was really well done. Again, it's basically if you're okay with taking experimental fights and trying something new than a straight up boxing match. I will say some of the fights felt a little quick jumped at points for me, but I felt like the punches definitely landed stronger in this one than Rocky 2, at least in my opinion. And yeah, just overall, I was very impressed with Rocky 3 in terms of the fight scenes, but more so the characters. So the story itself is kind of very easy to see what's coming, all the twists and turns, except one that actually really did surprise me. But I thought the characters really worked well. I actually felt very emotional in this movie, almost as much as the first Creed. And there's a scene that actually made me cry because of what was being said, and you could feel it on their face. These actors and actresses in this movie are absolutely phenomenal, from the wife to, sorry, I'm so bad with names. I don't mean to say it's his wife just because his wife, but she is so good. I love that actress, Valkyrie from Thor as well, but she's so good. Michael B. Jordan's great. Jonathan Mayers, the main character, Dame, in this, the main antagonist. He's excellent in this. So that really elevates this movie for me. Makes it better than Creed 2 because I felt the acting was just stronger and the characters are stronger and the emotions are stronger and the punches I felt hit harder. I will say that is weird at times. I think the pacing's a little off. I think the first half feels really nice and steady and slow, and then we kind of start speeding things up because we got to get to a final fight. So that felt kind of odd. And, you know, all these movies you have to have, you just have to suspend your belief because it's just crazy how some of this stuff evolves into a fight. So in this movie especially, there's scenes where I'm like, that definitely would not happen in real life. But either would Rocky Balboa, let's be honest, and it was great. So yeah, Creed 3 is pretty great. I'm going to put it in the knockout. Now, where would I put it in the knockout is the big question. We got Rocky Balboa there, and we got Rocky 4. Both are very good, so I think I'm going to put it right in between. I think I liked it. I think it was better made than Rocky 4, and I liked it just a tad bit more than Rocky 4. But Rocky Balboa really just, to me, is the perfect swan song for the Rocky character as a boxer. So yeah, that's my list. Like I said, I will watch these movies for the rest of my life. I think they're all good in their own merit. I don't think any are bad, like I said. Now, do I think that some definitely needed more editing or more work or just a better script? Yes, especially in Rocky 3 and Rocky 5. But anything above those two, I legitimately enjoy. I like to watch them. It's just that some I think are better crafted and made than others. And I know I might have the opinion that's not common with a bunch of people, but to me, Creed is my favorite of the franchise, literally by a slither, because Rocky is also a phenomenal movie. So that's my list. I would love to see what you guys think. Rocky's a pretty great franchise. It's one of the most, it's probably the longest running sports, right? Right? Sports films ever, like series. I don't know any other that's this long, that's this good. And Rocky to me definitely has more good than bad. So that's also a plus. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this tier list. If you did, hit that like button. If you love it, hit the subscribe button. Let me know what you think below. Either list them all if you've seen them all. At least give me the top 3 or your favorite and the worst one. That's always interesting. Someone put Creed one time as their worst. And I'm like, did you not see Rocky 2 to 5? Like what? But yeah, that to me is just crazy. But I would love to see crazy opinions like that. So put them below. And everybody else, enjoy and have a great day. And I usually have some corny ass thing to say, but I'm just gonna stop this video before I say